We've been talking about employee retention. And one of the big issues we have to address, this is the big elephant in the room, is money. And I'm here to tell you, money is not the real reason why people quit. Now, that doesn't stop managers and leaders and executives from thinking that money is the #1 reason. We recently did a study. 89% of managers say that money is the reason why their employees quit. And yet when you go and you ask those employees, why did you quit? Only 9% of them said the money is the real reason that I quit. So why is it that managers think it's the money? Well, it's because, generally speaking, employees say it's the money, but they don't really mean the money. Here's why they say the money, at least to the manager's face. They say it for the same reason that when you're dating and you break up with somebody, you don't tell them why you're really breaking up with them. You usually use something like, it's not you, it's me. It's nothing you did, it's the place I'm at right now in my life, and that's the reason why we need to break up. It's because you don't want to have that messy conversation about what's really going on in your head. The reason I'm breaking up with you is you're a needy, narcissistic mama's boy who can't clean up after yourself. That's why I'm really breaking up with you. But you don't want to say that because that's just messy and that's a weird conversation and nobody wants a scene in a restaurant. So you say it's not you, it's me. When an employee tells their manager, listen, the reason I'm quitting is it's just the money, it was just a better offer, I just really have to take it. What they're really saying is, I don't want to tell you the truth because I may need you as a reference down the road. I don't want to tell you you're a narcissistic micromanager who belittled me at every turn because I may need you as a job reference if this new job doesn't pan out. So they say, it's not you, it's me. It's all about the money. And the manager says, oh, thank God it's not me. And the employee says, oh, thank God I didn't have to talk about that any further. And off they go. One aspect of retention that we do have to talk about is why our high performers leave. Now again, we're going to have to ask them to find it out, but let me give you one big reason why high performers tend to quit. High performers often quit because they've got the worst jobs. Now what does that mean? Let's imagine it's Friday afternoon at 5 p.m. You have a major project due, it has to get done over the weekend, it's a major proposal you've got to get in by Monday morning at 9 a.m. or you're not going to get this $20 million deal. Now you need this thing done right. You need this to be aces. Who are you going to turn to? Who is going to end up giving their weekend up to make sure this thing doesn't go poorly? Of course, you're a high performer. Now, a week goes by, you get it in, wonderful, everything's great. It's 5 p.m. on a Friday again. Same situation emerges. Who do you turn to? Your high performer or your low performer? Of course, you turn to the high performer. And the week after that, and the week after that. And what ends up happening is this high performer, we turn to them so often, they're the ones working the late nights, they're the ones giving up the weekends, and we're doing this for two reasons. A, because they're the high performer and they can get it done, and they tend to be a delight to work with. But the other issue is we tend to shy away from the low performers, especially those skilled people with bad attitudes. We tend to shy away from them because we don't want to deal with that emotional hassle. We don't want the pain of having to interact with the negative and the narcissistic and the whiny people. So we keep dumping on our high performers, and eventually they burn themselves out. Because these are the people that say, not on my shift is this going to go wrong. I will be the one who stands up and says, we are going to do this right. And the problem is, if we don't take care of them, they will eventually burn themselves into a crisp because they're making up for everybody else. And because we don't want to go deal with those low performers, we keep dumping and dumping and dumping and dumping on the high performers. And eventually, they burn out and walk out the door. The thing that leaders have to understand about motivation is that before we can start motivating people, we've actually got to stop demotivating people. Let me give you a weird point to illustrate how this works. Motivation and demotivation are not opposites of each other, just as the same as pain and pleasure are not opposites of each other. The opposite of pain is not pleasure. The opposite of pain is the absence of pain. The opposite of pleasure isn't pain. The opposite of pleasure is the absence of pleasure. Let me give you an example. If somebody's hitting my foot with a hammer, that's pain. When they stop, that's not pleasure, that's just no more pain. By the same token, if I'm getting the world's greatest back rub, that's pleasure. But if they stop, that's not pain, that's just no more pleasure. Now, how does this connect to motivation? What's the linkage here? The issue is this. If somebody is hitting my foot with a hammer, we cannot fix the pain in my foot by giving me a back rub. If we want to fix the pain in my foot, the thing we've got to do is to stop hitting my foot with a hammer. And that's the thing that leaders have to understand, is that we cannot walk around trying to fix the pain that our people feel by giving them back rubs. We've got to fix the pain that they feel by first tackling the pain that they feel. Now, many leaders don't want to talk about the pain, don't want to talk about the demotivators, don't want to talk about the things that may be turning their people off and causing them to lose their energy and their passion. And they don't want to talk about it for the same reason that men over 40 don't get enough PSAs and colonoscopies, and women over 40 don't get enough mammograms. It's not because the tests are painful. Trust me, I understand there is a high level of discomfort with those tests. Believe me, I get it. But that's not why we don't ask the questions. It's not why we don't get those tests. The reason why we don't get those tests is because we're terrified of the answer. In the 100,000 leaders we've studied, I can tell you that the top 5% of these leaders understand that the first thing they've got to do before they can start giving people back rubs or whatever the equivalent may be, they give them a gift card or a trinket or a present, before they can do any of that, they've got to go talk to their folks and ask them, hey, listen, before we get to what might motivate you, let's talk about what might be demotivating you. They go, they uncover that pain, because they know before they can throw a gift card out there, before they can throw a back rub out there, the first thing they've got to do is stop demotivating. Then their people are going to be ready to be motivated. We've been talking about speaking the truth without making people angry. And I shared with you so far 4 of the 5 reasons why you can't really give people advice, why advice giving doesn't work. Let me share with you the 5th reason why giving advice tends not to be a fantastically successful strategy. Advice is oftentimes unsolicited. And what that means is that somebody's been working on something and we come along and say, oh, I don't know if I'd do it that way. Oh, I'd try it this way instead. We're giving advice to somebody that's not in an emotional state to receive it. They've been pursuing a path of action. They've been working in a particular way. They've been making certain choices. And now we come along and basically say to them, no, I would never do it like that. That's not the right way to do it. And while that's a harsh version of advice, of course, the reality is that when advice, any advice, even a gentle advice, comes out of the blue and people aren't ready for it, they're not going to react particularly well to it. Now, here's the thing. People will often say, but Mark, they asked me for advice. What am I supposed to do if somebody asks me for advice? Am I not supposed to give it to them? And the answer is most of the time, right, you're not supposed to give it to them. Here is the dirty little secret about advice, even when somebody asks for it. You can find rare exceptions to this, and I do mean rare exceptions to this. But most of the time, when people ask for advice, they're not really looking for advice. If they really wanted advice, they'd have asked you much earlier in the process. They wouldn't ask you now when they've already committed to a plan of action. Most of the time when people are asking you for advice, what they want is affirmation. They want to know that the decisions they've made were good. They're not looking for somebody to come around and say, no, every decision you've made up until this point was fundamentally stupid and here's how you should have done it. The other morning I walked downstairs wearing a new shirt and tie combination. And so I asked my wife, do you think this shirt goes with this tie? Now, in all seriousness, what was I really looking for out of her? Was I looking for her to say, what are you, colorblind? That's the worst combination I've ever seen. I would never match those 2 colors together. No, I'm dressed. I got this shirt, the tie on, I'm good to go. All I'm really looking for is a pat on the head. I'm looking for some affirmation that says, yes, wonderful, you did good. Yeah, that's a nice shirt, nice tie, go out, have a great day. That's what I'm really looking for. I wasn't really looking for advice. If she had given me true advice, even though I'm asking her, I'm basically asking her for advice. If she had said, oh, I would never match those two colors together, then my likely response is going to be something like, well, you wouldn't match these two colors together because you don't know anything about color. You're not a fashion guru. And she's going to say, yeah, well, if I'm not a fashion guru, then why are you asking me? And on it goes. Not a great way to start the morning. The reality is that most people, when they're asking for advice, are really asking for affirmation. If you give them advice instead, you do so at your own risk.